Hey, how you doing? I'm Pop Mhan, and I'm going to answer some of your questions today. So here we go. All right. Number one. Hello, Pop Mhan. Well, hello. How are you 10 years after the comics Bionicle, Glatorian, and Journey's End? And what are your projects for 2020? Well, it's been a good 10 years since Bionicle, Glatorian, and Journey's End. I've spent them drawing even more comics, writing, and working on my own projects. I think for 2020, I am preparing to launch a campaign to fund a collectible card game that I created called Rumblebots. It's funny, but the Rumblebots game came to be because I was working on a battle system for Legos and Bionicle. It's a system where you build, your robots and battle them, and the system evolved from there and into a card game. But, you can still use parts and pieces. And even though I create my own story and lore, as well as, the look and feel for the game and the toys, I'll always think fondly about how the Bionicles helped, inspire the game. So, did your work on Bionicle bring you something in particular, maybe some techniques or opportunities for further projects? Well, the work I did on Bionicle made me much more comfortable drawing robots and mechanical parts and pieces. And in the past, I'd sometimes avoid, projects with a lot of tech in it because I just didn't like drawing tech that much. Because, I was much more comfortable with drawing robots. I didn't hesitate with the designs for, my own game, Rumblebots. And my familiarity with working on Bionicle parts and pieces and elaborate design work also helped me to design my own game, and with the game mechanics, using the parts and pieces and whatnot. And I'm very, very lucky to have worked on Bionicles when I did. It's definitely helped me with my own stuff. Question number 3. How have you been hired on Bionicle, and how did you become familiar with the franchise? Well, I have a good track record with DC Comics licensing department for being, I'm known as being reliable and easy to work with. I'm also able to work well with third-party companies, like Lego, and take directions and, offer creative input in a pretty friendly way. My art isn't too bad either. So, and so that's a plus, right? So when the spot became open for Bionicle, I was invited to try out for the job, and Lego liked my work enough to put me in the spot. I have to admit, though, that I didn't know much about Bionicle before taking the job, and in fact, one of the hardest parts of the tryout was trying to draw the characters accurately. That was pretty rough. 4. How did it feel to be the artist who put an end and drew the big finale of a 10-year-old fan favorite saga? Did you feel more pressure to conclude a big story born in 2001? Well, in hindsight, I'm a bit sad that, a cool property like Bionicle ended. But I was told about the plan to end Bionicle and launch Hero Factory maybe 4 to 6 months before, the end of the Bionicle series. And at that time, DC Comics was gearing up to see if they would even be handling, Hero Factory comics for Lego, and who would be drawing the book, and, if the project started. I was asked to draw a sample pinup, but I'm not sure what happened afterwards, because right after the Bionicle project, I started work on Worlds of Warcraft, and I lost touch with, the Lego license. As for the pressure, I think so, but because, it was so hectic at the time, trying to finish up the project, the Bionicle project, and then doing the Hero Factory tryout, and also trying out for Warcraft and a few other projects. I just didn't have much time to worry or to feel the pressure, of the end of Bionicle. 5. Were you aware of the Bionicle lore before working on it, and what is your feeling with the universe? Well, as I stated previously, I'm not that familiar with Bionicle before working on the project. I love the Bionicle lore and the property after working on it. I did a lot of work studying you know, about Bionicle and all the different pieces and all the different parts and all the elaborate mechanical engineering that, you know, was put into each piece and part. And because of that, I truly appreciated it. The elaborate, the intricate, and the fancy pieces afterwards. So yeah, that's my feeling. That said, I do think that the lore is pretty phenomenal. I mean, there's so much to it, and yeah, it's very cool property. 6. What was your first reaction when Lego guys told you, "Hey Pop, you can draw 2 planet-sized robots and some villagers next to it to represent Matanui and Makuta"? Did you think it's as easy as Galactus, or, oh man, that's kind of a challenge? How do you manage to draw such big characters in comic books? Well, it was hard. It was really hard. When Lego said, "Hey, they want me to draw the two heroes that were planet-sized," my first thought was, how on earth would I ever portray that, and how would they fit like on a comic page? I mean, like people would be so small, and that was part of comics, is that you're able to bend and warp things a little bit, and I definitely had to do that, because honestly, if I had to draw the planet and the villagers and everything, the villagers would be just a speck of dust, and I think much of it was me drawing specks of dust. But the size of the planet's also relative, right? Because you could have like huge planets like Saturn size, and you can have very small planets like Pluto size, right? So there's much variety in there. So even though the heroes are planet size, we could say they're more Pluto than Saturn, right? So there was that. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge, and it made my gave me headaches for a long time trying to figure out how I was going to draw all of that. So. Yeah. 7. In 2010, there were some talk between the fans about the nature of the heavenly body that hit Makuta's robot head. Some media spoke about a violent impact with Planet Aqua Magna, whereas it's just a small fragment of it in the comic book. Do you have a personal interpretation about it? I don't. And I will say that I'm going to avoid input on that because Greg Farsty is the writer on the book, and obviously, his interpretation is probably going to be much more have much more weight to it than mine. I pretty much just followed what Greg wrote and directed me to draw. And so in that way, I'm going to say I don't have any input on that. Okay, so 8. What were your relations with the creators of Bionicle? Did you work with the author Greg Farsty or with a bigger team? I worked mainly with the editor and the assistant editors on the book, and I would also see Lego's emails sometimes, as well as Greg's sometimes. So in that way, I didn't really, although I was given Greg's email in order, in case I needed to speak with him further, but it never got to that, it never got to the point where I needed to. So in that way, we weren't as close as we could have been, I guess. But that's okay. I worked with a great team at DC Comics, so I was never at a loss for input or direction. So yeah, although I would love to hang out with Greg and grab a beer sometime. That would be great, right? So 9. At the very beginning, Bionicle was a very successful toy brand for kids and teens. Did you have particular constraints regarding this young audience, maybe in the way to draw and give life to this universe? So yeah, so one of the things about being a licensed artist, or an artist that works on licensed properties, like me, is that we're always very careful about how we're, the things that we draw are depicted, things that could be seen as controversial or inappropriate for, for different various ages. I can speak for myself that, I'm very aware of, what things are appropriate, and what things are not. So in that way, yeah, I definitely, am very aware of it. Although for the Lego licenses, because we're always drawing, like blocks and things like that, there's not as much of a constraint. Things like violence is we have to curb it a little bit. Obviously, we're not drawing things where, Bionicles are getting smashed and in such a violent or graphic way, I guess. Compared to other things I've had to draw before. So yeah, there's definitely a things you have to worry about with that. 10. Bionicle fans are now between 20 and 30 or more. Yeah, and are more into darker and mature content. Would you draw it differently if you had to work on it today? No, because, again, you're drawing for Lego, and because, I'm drawing for Lego, I always have to worry about the age constraints, and, in a way, I am representing the brand, when I'm working on their property. So, and Lego brand is very, it's very, it's geared for a younger audience. If it was my own projects, then yeah, obviously I can go much darker and much more graphic with it, and to which I do on my own work. 11. Were you influenced by the drawings of the artists who worked on Bionicle before you? Carlos Deanda, Randy Elliott, Stuart Sager, and Lee Gallagher. Yes. So when I was asked to try out for the Bionicle property, one of the reasons that Lego really liked Lee Gallagher's work a lot, and I guess my abilities to chameleon other people's work when I need to helped me to make the transition, because the thing is, when a property goes from one artist to the next, it's sometimes not in the best interest to go completely different than what people are used to. So what I try to do when I'm jumping into a project that's already been worked on by another artist is I try to I already have a look in my mind of what the work will look like at the end, but until we get there, I skew my own style to reflect more of what was seen before, and then gradually over time start pushing it towards what I would, do in my own work. So, yeah. There was a lot of influence there. 12. Is there a story arc in the first Bionicle Saga between 2001 and 2010 that you'd have liked to draw other than Glatorian? I will say that the one that Stuart Sager worked on was pretty awesome. I forget what they're called exactly, but it had a lot of water in it, and I'm a big fan of drawing water and the darkness that's conveyed in underwater scenes and stuff. So I really like to have had a go at that. You created your own YouTube channel 4 months ago with a beautiful drawing of Matanui when he took the appearance of a Glatorian, and then about 20 videos. Can you present us the concept of your channel? Sure. So the concept of the Pop Mhan Comics channel is to show people what the things that I draw, and have them follow along and see how things progress from beginning to the end. 1. 2 is also to start doing like how-tos and tutorials so that they can also draw things, or they can also see how I draw things, and if they can use the tips and tricks that I can do or that I show them, then awesome. And hopefully grow the channel nice and big. and also to promote Rumblebots and some of the other personal work that I've got going on when the time comes. Okay, so 14. In your video, you say that Mata Nui is your favorite superhero after Superman. Is it because he wears a cape or because he has less detail to draw? Well, I would say that because he has less detail to draw. Yeah, so drawing the Bionicle was one of the hardest parts, was just the amount of detail. That was crazy. Spent a lot of time drawing all those little circles. Bonus, when will we see you in a convention in France? Hopefully as soon as this COVID thing is done and I'm able to connect with anyone in France and I'm able to go. I would love to meet all of you and say hi. And yeah, I would love to talk with as many Bionicle fans as possible. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for all of the questions. I've had a great time remembering about Bionicles, and I had even a better time drawing it. What was it, like 10 years ago? Whew, that's a long time ago. But it was really nice to talk about it again and revisit the ideas. And I hope I will see all of you very, very soon. Please follow me on my YouTube channel, Pop Mhan Comics with the X. Okay? And be sure to pick up Rumblebots when it comes out. And I'll see you soon.